By the time the dinner rush settled over Lurinary, the kind of Manhattan restaurant where fortunes were quietly made and destroyed, Adela Jenkins already felt the tension humming through the air. She was setting fresh glasses at table 4 when a voice drifted from the corridor behind her. Soft, polished, and cruel. "He won't survive this," Elena Vance whispered into her phone. "Once he steps outside, it's done." Adela stiffened. Julian Thorne, the billionaire now straightening his cufflinks under the golden lights, had no idea his fiancée was plotting something far darker than betrayal. "Elena," the man on the line asked, "you have the access codes?" Beat of silence. Then, "He trusts me. That's all I need." The tray trembled in Adela's hands. In a room built on wealth and shadows, she was the only one who heard the truth, and the only one who could warn the man about to lose everything. What happens next will unravel their entire world. Stay with the story, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales for more gripping episodes. The moment Adela stepped back into the dining room, the chandeliers seemed to burn hotter, as if the lights themselves sensed the betrayal lingering in the room. Julian Thorne lifted his glass toward Elena, unaware that danger sat inches away from his fingertips. Adela walked past them with steady steps that betrayed none of the storm unraveling in her mind. She had heard enough to know that silence was no longer harmless. Silence could get a man killed. Julian's laugh carried across the table, low and easy. "To new beginnings," he said. Elena clinked her glass against his, her smile flawless, her eyes hollow. Adela forced herself to breathe. She replayed the whisper she had overheard, the certainty in Elena's voice, the cold precision behind every word. "He won't survive this. Once he steps outside, it's done." Adela pushed through the kitchen doors, letting them swing closed behind her, and leaned against the stainless steel counter. Her co-worker Leah glanced up, noticing the tremor in her hands. "Adela, you okay?" Leah asked. "No," Adela answered softly. "And I don't know what I'm supposed to do about it." Leah lowered her voice. "Whatever it is, choose the option that lets you sleep at night." Sleep was impossible anyway. She wiped her palms on her uniform and returned to the floor. Every step felt like walking a tightrope stretched between responsibility and fear. She watched Julian rise from his chair while Elena reached for her clutch. In any normal night, this would mean the check was coming. But tonight she saw something different. Elena checking the time, then the doors, then Julian's phone. The plan was already in motion. Adela approached with a fresh water bottle, her last excuse to get close to him. As she reached across the table, she leaned just slightly, just enough for the napkin to slide beneath his glass. Julian steadied the stem of the wine glass, and in that silent gesture, their eyes met. Her look said everything. "Read it now. Don't wait." Julian lifted the glass. The napkin stayed behind. Across the room, Adela retreated into the shadows and waited. Seconds stretched like hours. Julian unfolded the slip. His jaw tensed. His posture shifted. The way he breathed changed, too measured for a man who moments earlier toasted a charming dinner. "Everything okay?" Elena asked sweetly. Julian slid the napkin into his palm and forced a smile. "Couldn't be better." But his shoulders sharpened. His eyes tracked the exits. The facade cracked for anyone who knew him well, and Elena didn't notice a thing. Adela stepped behind a column, barely daring to blink. She watched Julian pick up his menu to cover his mouth while he typed a single message into his phone. "Mason." Code red. Julian lowered the menu. "Shall we go?" he asked Elena. "Of course," she said, reaching for his arm. He stepped away before she could touch him. At that moment, the restaurant doors burst open. 3 figures in trench coats stepped inside, their eyes scanning the room. Their footsteps were too heavy for ordinary patrons, too intentional, too synchronized. Adela's breath caught. Julian's voice dropped. "Elena, get behind me." But Elena's mask slipped. Her instinct wasn't protection, it was escape. She rushed sideways, her chair skidding across the floor as she ran toward the hall. One of the men pulled a weapon. Thorn! Down! Chaos erupted. Tables overturned. Gus screamed. Crystal shattered on marble floors. Julian shielded himself behind a fallen table. Gunfire cracked across the room. Adela ducked behind a column as dust rained from the ceiling. She looked toward the kitchen, the only place Julian could reach without being cornered. He made the same calculation. Julian sprinted low through the aisle. A shot scorched past his shoulder. He slammed through the kitchen doors and crashed straight into Adela. "You wrote the note," he said. "Yes," she whispered. "Then you're coming with me." He grabbed her wrist and pulled her through the kitchen as bullets ripped into steel counters behind them. Pots clattered to the floor as the back door burst open. Mason's SUV fishtailed into the alley, headlights slicing through the darkness. "Get in," Mason yelled. Julian shoved Adela inside and threw himself in after her. The instant the doors shut, the SUV shot forward. Bullets pinged against the armored plating like hail. Adela pressed back into the seat, her heart pounding so hard it felt like the air inside the car shifted with each beat. Mason glanced at them through the rear-view mirror. "What happened?" he demanded. "Elena," Julian said. "She sold me out." The SUV swerved through traffic until Mason reached a service road leading toward a private airfield. He killed the lights, blending into the dark. Adela didn't speak. She folded her hands tightly in her lap, trying to stop their trembling. A helicopter waited for them, blades thumping steadily like an impatient heartbeat. "Move," Mason ordered. Inside the aircraft, wind roared through the cabin as they lifted off. Below them, Manhattan blurred into a sea of fractured lights. Julian shut his eyes for a single moment, the weight of betrayal settling on his shoulders, heavy enough to crush a lesser man. "Tell me everything," he said to Adela. She repeated every detail she had heard, including Marcus Sterling's name. Julian's expression hardened. "I trusted her," he muttered. "And she walked me into an execution." "She planned more than that," Adela said. "She planned to take everything." Julian opened his eyes fully then. "Not if we get to the Foundry first." The Foundry. The place she never expected to enter again. She swallowed hard. "Then you need me." Julian studied her face. "Why?" "'Cause my dad worked there. I know how to get inside without being seen." Mason and Julian exchanged a look. Neither doubted her. She had already proven more loyal than anyone in Julian's inner circle. The helicopter banked toward the outskirts of the city. Below them, the abandoned foundry loomed like a rusted skeleton. Black rivers of smoke curled from its chimneys even though no legal operation had run there in years. Inside the command center, Elena stood beside Marcus Sterling, clutching Julian's stolen phone. "Biometric bypass complete," a technician announced. "We'll have full access in under 6 minutes." Marcus grinned. "Good. Thorn Industries falls tonight." Elena's smile faltered. "Just make sure nobody gets hurt." "Too late," Marcus said flatly. "That was decided the moment you handed me the codes." Elena said nothing else. She looked at the phone in her hand, a device that had once unlocked trust, affection, safety. Now it was a weapon. High above them, unseen, Julian, Adela, and Mason crawled across the steel gantry. "She's really doing it," Julian whispered, staring down at Elena in disbelief. "You said you loved her," Adela murmured. "I thought I did." Adela didn't respond. She kept her eyes forward, locked on the generator that powered the entire illegal operation. If she could reach it, she could stop everything. Below them, Marcus clapped his hands. Transfer sequence initiated. 60 seconds. Mason mouthed now. Julian vaulted the railing. Mason followed, dropping like a stone onto the first guard. Adela sprinted down the ladder. A technician spotted her. "Hey, who are you?" She didn't wait to hear the rest. She grabbed the fire axe on the wall, raised it above her head, and struck the generator cable with a violent swing fueled by 5 years of exhaustion, anger, and injustice. Sparks burst across the room. The machines died. The screen went black. "No!" Marcus screamed. "Elena!" a guard shouted. "He's here." Julian didn't hesitate. He charged Marcus, flipping the table where the servers had been seconds earlier. A shot rang out. Screams echoed through the metal hall. Elena turned, saw Julian and froze. "Julian, wait. You planned this," he said. "You walked me into it." "I had no choice," she cried. "I owed money." Marcus held the debt. "I had to." Julian stepped closer. "You could have asked me for help. You would have judged me," she said. "You always judge people." "Not the way you think," he answered. Before he could say more, Marcus snatched a gun off the floor and pointed it at Julian's chest. "Move an aisle." He never finished the threat. Mason tackled him from behind, slamming him into the concrete. The gun skidded across the floor, straight toward Adela's feet. She kicked it far out of reach. "Stay down," Mason barked. Marcus spat blood. "You think this is over? You think he wins?" "He doesn't have to win," Mason growled. "You already lost." But the ground shook beneath them. Pipes snapped overhead. Steam blasted from rusted joints. The foundry had become unstable when the power failed. Julian grabbed Adela's wrist. "We need to get out now." They pulled Elena to her feet, dragging her toward the exit as the building moaned under its own weight. Mason hauled Marcus in cuffs behind them. The boiler erupted. Fire consumed the far wall. Alarms wailed. They sprinted toward the loading bay, dragging Julian when he stumbled from the graze wound on his shoulder. Another pipe burst, showering sparks. Adela shielded him with her body as debris crashed around them. Outside, police floodlights flared through the smoke. Officers waved them forward. "Run!" someone shouted. They dove behind a barricade as the entire foundry exploded in a roaring fireball that lit the night sky like a dying sun. Heat blasted across the pavement. Shattered metal rained down. Sirens echoed from every direction. Adela coughed, her throat raw. "Julian, where is he?" She spotted him minutes later being lifted into an ambulance, pale but breathing. Elena sat handcuffed against a squad car, mascara streaking down her cheeks, staring at the inferno that had consumed everything she gambled for. Marcus Sterling, soaked and shivering, was dragged from the river by officers. His attempt to escape had failed. His empire crumbled as quickly as the building he used to hide his crimes. Adela closed her eyes, letting the chaos swell around her. She had walked into her shift expecting another long night of being unseen. She ended it as the reason a man lived, a conspiracy collapsed, and 2 criminals were brought to justice. But the story wasn't finished. Not yet. Because as medics lifted Julian into the ambulance, an investigator approached Adela with a grim expression. "There's something you need to see," he said. "It involves the man who tried to have Julian killed." Adela stepped toward him, unaware that the next revelation would shift everything again. And what she discovered next was the price the traitor would pay. When the dust finally settled, Adela found herself outside the ruins of the foundry, watching the last flickers of flame curl into the night sky. She wasn't the same woman who walked into her shift hours earlier. Fear had pushed her forward, but something deeper kept her standing. Her belief that the truth still mattered in a world that often ignored people like her. Julian, bandaged but awake, studied her with an expression she had never seen from any man in his world. Respect. Not for what she did, but for who she chose to be when everything collapsed around them. And in that quiet recognition, she understood that courage wasn't loud or perfect. It was the small decision to act when staying silent felt safer. As officers led Marcus away and Elena faced the consequences of her choices, Adela realized the real turning point wasn't the rescue. It was the moment she refused to look away. Sometimes the shift that changes your life begins with a single step no one expects you to take. Before she left the scene, she spotted the scorched napkin lying near the barricade, half buried in ash. She lifted it gently, the faint writing still visible, a reminder of how everything began. Thank you for watching this story. If it moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to Canada's Heartfelt Tales so we can continue bringing more powerful stories to life.